Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we explore the convergence of history and the future, a new era of intelligence. Good evening.
Imagine you are stuck in just the absolute worst traffic jam of your entire life.
Oh, I hate those.
Right. It is pouring rain. Your windshield wipers are, furiously squeaking back and forth. You're already like 20 minutes late for something incredibly important.
Naturally.
Yeah, exactly. And the sea of red taillights stretching out in front of you is just, it's not moving an inch.
Just parked on the highway.
Totally parked, and your heart is hammering against your ribs. Your grip on the steering wheel is so tight, your knuckles are white. The sheer, overwhelming claustrophobia of the moment is just making you want to scream.
I can feel my blood pressure rising just thinking about it, honestly.
Good, hold on to that feeling. Now imagine someone in the passenger seat turns to you, gives you this sympathetic little smile, and says, just be patient. What do you feel in that exact moment?
I mean, you feel a visceral reaction, the urge to just open the passenger door and roll them out into the rain. Because in that context, being told to have patience feels like feels like an insult. It feels like you are being asked to just act like a sponge.
Yeah.
Sitting there quietly, absorbing all the misery, the anxiety, and the absolute lack of control, and you're supposed to just not make a sound.
It feels like you're being told to be a doormat. Just let the situation step all over you, flatten yourself out, and accept the defeat.
Right.
But what if the ancient world viewed that exact same scenario not as this invitation to passive suffering, but as the battleground for a violent, highly active psychological war?
That is the million-dollar question.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is Friday, 2026-06-05, and we have a very specific mission for you today. We are going to do a complete ground-up re-examination of a concept that almost every single person listening to this right now thinks they understand perfectly.
Or at least they assume they do.
Exactly. We are diving into a massive stack of linguistic analyses, classical Arabic dictionaries, and textual extractions from the Quran to explore the true multidimensional root of the word sabr.
Which is a word that gets casually, and I mean, perhaps tragically, translated into English simply as patience.
Right.
We are about to see how that translation is not just incomplete, but it is a fundamental distortion of what the word originally meant to the people who first used it.
The linguistic sources we're unpacking today, they systematically shatter all of our preconceived notions about this concept, because we really do view patience exactly like that traffic jam scenario.
Yeah, we view it as a reluctant, agonizing acceptance of our own powerlessness.
We view it as just, waiting.
Right, just biding your time.
But the deeper we go into this material, Sabr reveals itself as something else entirely. It emerges as a highly active, incredibly dynamic superpower of emotional and psychological self-control.
It completely upends the modern paradigm of human resilience. I mean, understanding the true root of Sabr doesn't just change how we read ancient religious texts or approach theology. It rewires how we manage the daily frictions, the sudden anxieties, and the prolonged crises of our modern lives. It takes you out of the passenger seat of your own suffering and puts you firmly behind the wheel.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how we got it so wrong, we have to look at the raw linguistic DNA of the word. We have to go back to the source code.
Foundational blocks.
Exactly. I was reading through the first classical Arabic dictionary cited in our research. It's called Maqayis al-Luqa, and I was totally thrown off by how the author, Ibn Faris, breaks down the root letters, Sa'ad, Ba, Ra. He traces the primary foundational meaning of the root to the word al-habs.
Right, al-habs.
And al-habs doesn't mean waiting, it means confinement.
Confinement.
It is essentially a prison metaphor. It means restriction or holding something back by force. It is the absolute opposite of letting something run wild.
What's fascinating here is the visual imagery of al-habs in classical Arabic is very, very physical.
Oh, totally.
It was used to describe tying up an animal so it wouldn't bolt, or holding a physical object in a strict state of lockdown.
Right.
And then when the second classical dictionary in our research, Lisan al-Arab, takes this physical root meaning of al-habs and applies it to the human condition, it defines Sabr as restricting the soul, or the self, from jaza.
Let's hold on that word, jazas, because understanding what we are confining is just as important as the confinement itself.
Absolutely.
The sources indicate jazas is panic. It's that feeling of completely losing your mind when things go wrong. It's the unraveling of the self.
It's the internal chaos that just bubbles up when you are tested. It's the impulse to complain endlessly, to break down, to let the anxiety take the wheel.
Right, the freak out.
Yeah, the freak out. So at its core, purely linguistic level, Sabre is the active, forceful confinement of your own internal panic. Notice the huge shift in focus here.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It is not about what happens to you in the external world, the traffic jam, the sudden illness, the financial ruin. It is entirely about the internal lockdown of your negative reactions to those external events.
But then Mokwezo-Luka adds this surprising secondary meaning to the root that I think completely flips our understanding.
Oh, the mountain thing.
Yes. It says the linguistic root of saber also refers to the peak or the top of a thing, like the very summit of a mountain.
Right.
Or the edges and highest borders of a physical structure. And I spent a long time looking at that, trying to figure out, what does holding yourself back from panic have to do with the peak of a mountain?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies that this act of internal restriction, this mastery over your own panic, is not some baseline expectation.
Right.
It is the highest possible state of being. It is the summit of human character. When you enact Sabre, you aren't being crushed under the weight of the situation down at the bottom of the valley.
Or standing on top of it.
Exactly. You have scaled the crisis.
That reframes the entire power dynamic of a crisis. You aren't the victim of the traffic jam. You are the master of your internal environment despite the traffic jam.
Precisely.
But, okay, I want to push back on this a little, or at least dig into the mechanics of it. Because if Sabre is just forcefully holding back your panic, isn't that just suppression?
Yeah.
Because modern psychology tells us that suppressing our emotions, just pushing them down and locking them in a dark room, is incredibly unhealthy. It leads to burnout, resentment, and, eventual explosion. Are these classical dictionaries really just telling us to suppress our feelings?
That is a crucial distinction to make, and it's where the third dictionary in our research, Al-Mujam al-Wasit, provides a vital layer of clarity.
Right, that's the more modern one.
Yeah, Al-Mujam al-Wasit is a more modern authoritative dictionary by the Arabic Language Academy, and it clarifies that Sabre isn't just about white-knuckling your way through the pain or blindly suppressing emotion.
Thank goodness.
It defines the abstracted meaning of Sabre as the soul's ability to consciously govern itself when facing the friction of life, resulting in an internal state of peace and tranquility.
Tranquility. That is the word that changes everything for me.
It's the key.
Because suppression doesn't lead to tranquility. Suppression leads to a pressure cooker.
Exactly. It's precisely the opposite of a pressure cooker. Sabre involves managing and controlling the self to the point where you actually achieve emotional quiet.
Wow.
It isn't just an external show of bravery while you are secretly screaming on the inside. It is true internal mastery. And just to round out the linguistic perspective, the final dictionary, Al-Mufradat, describes it as holding back in a state of narrowness or distress.
So the distress is real.
The distress is very real. The pain is fully acknowledged, but the response is governed.
Okay, so bringing this all together, we have to throw out the doormat analogy entirely. Sabre isn't a doormat. It's more like a massive hydroelectric dam.
I love this analogy.
Think about the mechanics of a dam. The foundational meaning is Al-Hab's confinement. The dam holds back the chaotic, destructive floodwaters of a raging river.
Right.
In our case, those floodwaters are jazas. Panic, anxiety, frustration, the urge to lash out. But a well-designed dam doesn't just passively block water.
No, it doesn't.
Because if it did, the water would eventually overtop it and destroy everything. A dam actively manages that immense pressure. It has spillways, it has turbines, it takes that raw, chaotic pressure and converts it into calm, usable energy.
It creates a state of tranquility in the reservoir behind it.
Exactly. And the psychological effort required to be the dam to enact Sabre is immense. This is why the translation of patience is just so anemic.
It really is.
Patience sounds like sitting on your hands doing nothing. Sabre is the hardest psychological heavy lifting a human being can do. You are acknowledging the floodwaters of your own grief or anger, you are feeling the pressure of them, but you are choosing to route that energy through the turbines of self-control rather than letting it wash away your character.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating your actual life?
Yeah, let's ground this.
It means that tomorrow, when you walk into a highly stressful meeting where someone takes credit for your work, or when you face a sudden financial crisis, or when someone you love gets a terrifying medical diagnosis.
Right.
Sabre is not sitting quietly in the corner playing the martyr. Sabre is the active internal construction of that dam. It is consciously restricting the panic so that you can operate from a place of clarity and tranquility.
Which naturally brings us to a major inflection point in our research, because if Saber is this active, forceful restriction of the self, how does it actually apply across the vast spectrum of human experience? Is it only reserved for when sudden disaster strikes?
And the sources say no.
Right. The research analyzes roughly 70 key verses in the Quran that utilize the root of Saber, and it categorizes them to demonstrate that Saber is required in 3 distinct arenas of life. It is not just an emergency protocol for tragedies.
Because if you think patience is just for funerals and job losses, you're missing 2/3 of its application.
Exactly. Let's walk through these 3 arenas. The first arena is exactly what we usually think of: patience against calamities. The text cites Surah Baqarah, verse 155, which talks about testing people with fear, hunger, and loss of wealth, lives, and fruits.
In this first arena, the floodwater hitting your internal dam is grief. It is fear. It is the devastating sense of loss.
Right.
The Sabe here, the Alhabs, is holding the soul back from resentment against the divine, from endless bitter complaining to people around you, and from total psychological collapse.
It is the conscious decision to accept the reality of the loss without letting it destroy your internal equilibrium.
Yes, and I think we can all wrap our heads around that one pretty easily.
For sure. But the second arena is where our traditional English definition of patience really starts to buckle under the weight of the concept.
Oh, absolutely.
The second arena is patience in obedience, holding the self to difficult tasks. The text references verses like Baqarah 45 and 153, which command believers to seek help through Saber and prayer.
This raises such an important question. Why do you need patience to pray? Or to tell the truth when it's inconvenient? Or to maintain justice when it costs you money?
Why?
Because obedience to a higher moral standard goes against the natural gravity of the human ego. The ego defaults to comfort, laziness, and the path of least resistance.
Always.
Doing the right thing consistently, day in and day out, when no one is watching and there is no immediate reward, is exhausting.
It's friction, pure, relentless friction. So in this arena, the floodwater isn't a sudden crisis or grief. The floodwater is apathy, it's fatigue.
It's the snooze button.
It's the snooze button, it's the voice in your head saying, just skip it today, it doesn't matter. The Saber here is holding your soul to the task. It's tying yourself to the mast of your principles when every fiber of your biology wants to quit and seek comfort.
Right.
It is the active endurance required to sustain a moral or spiritual habit over a lifetime.
And then we arrive at the third arena, which is perhaps the most difficult for the modern mind to grapple with. Patience away from sin. Withholding the self from forbidden desires.
Yeah, this one's tough.
The text points to Surah Nisa, verse 25, which discusses restraining the self from unethical shortcuts or illicit pleasure-seeking.
In this third arena, the chaotic floodwater is temptation. It is desire. The ego wants the immediate hit of dopamine.
Give it to me now.
Right. The Saber is the internal dam that holds back that specific urge. It is restricting the self from taking the easy, highly stimulating, but ultimately destructive path. The research material uses the example of fasting to illustrate this, and I found the mechanics of that just fascinating.
What's fascinating here is that fasting is the ultimate physical training ground for this third arena of Saber.
How so?
Well, when an individual fasts, they are intentionally withholding their physical body from food and drink things that are normally completely permissible and, biologically necessary for a higher spiritual purpose.
Right.
The literature notes that fasting is sometimes literally synonymous with Saber in the tradition. Why? Because if you can consciously build a dam against your fundamental biological imperative for water on a hot day, you are exercising the exact same psychological muscle needed to hold back panic during a crisis or to hold back temptation during the moment of weakness.
I hear what you're saying, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
I'm looking at this third arena, holding back from sin or forcing yourself to do something grueling like fasting, and I'm struggling to see why we are using a word that translates to patience. Isn't what you're describing just good old-fashioned discipline?
I see where you're going.
Like, isn't it just willpower? Let's say I'm on a very strict diet. I walk into a kitchen and there's a massive chocolate cake on the counter.
Oh, man.
I want it desperately. My mouth is watering, but I forcefully hold myself back. I don't eat it. I'm furious about it. I'm glaring at the cake. My whole morning is ruined because I can't have it, but I didn't eat it.
Right.
I exercise Al-Habs. I confine my desire. Do I have Saber?
You have willpower, but you do not have Saber.
Wow. Really?
And this is exactly where the distinction lies, pulling us back to the definition from al-Musham al-Wasit. Willpower is entirely concerned with the external action, or in your case, the non-action.
Okay.
You successfully white-knuckled your way past the cake, but your internal state was a chaotic mess of frustration and anger. You were experiencing jaza, the panic of missing out.
So my dam held the water back, but the turbines weren't running. The reservoir was totally turbulent.
Exactly. Sabr is not just about the behavior. It is about the state of the heart while executing the behavior. It's about enduring the friction of doing the right thing or avoiding the wrong thing while maintaining inner peace.
Inner peace.
Yeah. If you are angrily glaring at the cake, you have discipline. But sabr is when you acknowledge the desire for the cake, process it, and consciously release it, allowing your internal state to remain still and calm. Willpower is the brutal struggle. Sabr is the elegant mastery.
Wow. Willpower is the struggle, but sabr is the mastery. That is a massive paradigm shift. It means you can be highly disciplined, but completely lack sabr.
It happens all the time. People endure incredible physical or professional hardships with iron discipline, but internally, they are bitter, resentful, and utterly devoid of tranquility.
Yeah, we all know people like that.
They are surviving, but they are not practicing sabr.
Okay, so understanding these three arenas conceptually, calamities, obedience, and avoiding sin is one thing. But what does it actually look like when a human being, with all their flaws and biological limitations, tries to live this out?
All right, the real-world application.
The source material gives us two incredibly vivid, contrasting prophetic models to demonstrate how sabr interacts with our most formidable enemy.
Time. Time is the ultimate stress test for sabr.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one thing to hold back your panic for an hour during a turbulent flight.
Sure.
It is entirely another to hold it back for a decade of chronic illness or a lifetime of professional failure. The texts present us with two distinct models, the ultimate standard and the cautionary tale.
Let's examine the ultimate standard first. The research refers to a group called Ulu al-Azm, which translates to the prophets of firm resolve.
Firm resolve.
In Surah Aqaf, verse 35, there is a direct, uncompromising command to the Prophet Muhammad to be patient as the prophets of firm resolve were patient. Who are these specific individuals, and why are they presented as the gold standard?
The classical sources identify the Ulu al-Azm as 5 specific prophets.
Yeah.
Nuh, who is Noah, Abraham, Musa, Moses, Isa, Jesus, and Muhammad.
Okay.
They are placed at the absolute summit of the mountain of sabr. Remember the peak definition, because of the sheer duration and unrelenting intensity of their tests.
The duration.
Yes. We are talking about individuals who endured decades, and in Noah's case, nearly a millennium, according to the text, of rejection, poverty, exile, and physical threat.
Let's really think about Noah for a second. Building a massive ship on dry land far from the ocean.
Just imagine the optics of that.
The text highlights that the defining characteristic of their sabr wasn't just that they suffered, suffering is universal, it was that they had sabr against the mockery and harm of their closest relatives and communities, day after day, year after year.
Right.
But the absolute crux of it, and this ties directly back to time, is that they maintained their internal dam without rushing the outcome.
Yes, that's key.
Noah didn't demand the flood happen on year 5 because he was tired of being laughed at. They trusted the agonizingly slow timeline, maintaining their certainty that the ultimate outcome would be realized.
They did not demand immediate victory to validate their efforts. Their internal dam was so fundamentally structurally sound that it could hold back the floodwaters of frustration, doubt, and social humiliation for an entire lifetime.
Which is mind-blowing.
But, as we mentioned, the research also provides a cautionary tale to illuminate what happens when that dam cracks under the crushing pressure of time.
And this brings us to the story of the companion of the whale. In Surah Qalam, verse 48, there is a very explicit, almost chilling warning. Be patient for the judgment of your Lord, and do not be like the companion of the whale.
Right.
This is referring to the prophet Yunus, or Jonah. We need to unpack his psychological state according to the sources, because I think it is the most relatable part of this entire deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. Yunus was a prophet, a deeply righteous and committed man. But he hit a breaking point.
He reached his limit.
His people were stubbornly rejecting his message, the needle wasn't moving, and the text indicates he became profoundly frustrated.
Yeah.
The friction of the situation overwhelmed him. He became agitated, he lost his saber with them, and crucially, he abandoned his post. He left his mission without waiting for divine permission or for the designated timeline to unfold. He attempted to rush the outcome by leaving.
He essentially rage quit his life's mission.
He did. He totally rage quit. His mistake was not a theological lack of faith in God. His mistake was a failure as Sabr regarding the timeline of his reality.
The timeline.
He wanted the result now. The delay became intolerable. And the text points out a profound, almost poetic consequence. Because he failed to maintain his internal confinement, his sabers, he ended up trapped in a much more literal, suffocating form of confinement, the belly of the whale.
That metaphor is absolutely stunning.
Isn't it?
When your internal dam breaks because you refuse to confine your panic, you drown in the external world. The lack of internal restriction leads directly to external restriction.
Right.
And honestly, we all have a bit of the companion of the whale inside us. Think about the modern equivalents of this.
Oh, there are so many.
It's launching a new business, pouring your heart into it, and then pulling the plug and liquidating everything after 3 months because you aren't on the cover of Forbes yet.
Yep.
Or starting a fitness journey, going to the gym for 2 weeks, and then throwing your sneakers in the trash because you don't have a six-pack. You rage quit because the timeline of reality refuses to bend to the demands of your ego.
You fail the test of time. You demand that the universe operates on the schedule of your impatience.
Exactly. While the firm resolve mindset, the Ulu Halazim approach, is trusting the agonizingly slow process, it is holding back the visceral urge to bail out when things get boring or hard or repetitive or when people mock you. It is the profound realization that the delay itself is the test.
And to add one more critical nuance to how these prophetic models operated, the source text brings up the case of Euyub, or Job.
Right.
He is explicitly and highly praised in Surah Sa'ad as patient, despite experiencing devastating, almost incomprehensible personal loss, the loss of his health, his wealth, and his family.
Just terrible loss.
But what is so crucial for us to understand is that Euyub's Sabr was not silent.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The text notes that he called out to God. He prayed passionately. He vocalized his distress, his pain, and his physical suffering to the divine.
I am so glad we were covering this because it completely shatters the toxic idea that being patient means you have to be an emotionless robot who isn't allowed to hurt or ask for help.
It proves that true Sabr fully accommodates vulnerability.
That's beautiful.
It allows for prayer, for seeking medical help, for crying, and for expressing the depths of your sorrow to God. What it absolutely prohibits is despair, bitterness, and the chaotic unraveling of Jaza.
Right.
You can stand behind the dam and weep at the sheer volume of the water, but you cannot take a sledgehammer to the concrete. You complain to God, but you do not complain about God.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We have defined what Sabr is linguistically. We have seen the 3 arenas it applies to. We have looked at the masters who wielded it and the highly relatable cautionary tales of those who lost it.
We have.
But the source text pushes us toward a much deeper, almost existential question. Why?
The big why.
Why is Sabr so strictly universally required in the human experience? Why is the architecture of life designed in a way that demands this intense, exhausting, internal dam building?
And the text answers this by introducing a cosmic rule, a universal law called Fitna. This is where the textual analysis reaches its philosophical peak. The source material intrinsically, inextricably links the concept of Sabr to the concept of Fitna. You simply cannot understand one without the other.
Okay, so what is it?
Fitna is the divine law of testing and trial. If we look at the linguistic root of fitna, it goes back to the metallurgical process of smelting.
Like with metals.
Exactly. It is the act of putting raw, impure gold into a blazing hot crucible to melt it down, burn away the dross and impurities, and extract the pure, precious metal.
So human life is the crucible. The events of our lives are the fire.
The text posits that human existence itself is a constant state of fitna. It is an ongoing, inescapable test designed to reveal the objective truth of who we are, burning away our illusions about ourselves.
Wow.
To solidify this connection, the sources highlight a specific recurring command that appears multiple times in the Quran, in surahs like Tur, Kalam, and Insan. It says, Isbir li hukmi rabbik.
Which translates to, be patient for the judgment of your Lord.
Correct. But the textual analysis provides a profound reinterpretation of what the judgment of your Lord actually means in this immediate context.
Okay.
It doesn't just mean waiting around for a judge to bang a gavel at the end of time on the day of judgment.
Right, that's what I would assume it meant.
The judgment of your Lord means the conditions of the test that God has decreed for your life in this exact moment. It means the specific parameters of the simulation you are currently running.
Okay, let's explore that. What do the parameters of the test actually look like?
The conditions of the test, the fitna, often include realities that are incredibly bitter to swallow.
Like what?
The judgment might be that the victory you have worked 10 years for is delayed for another 5.
Ouch.
The judgment might be that people who are deeply unethical, who cheat and lie, are granted temporary power, wealth, and status over you.
That's a hard one.
The judgment might be that you, despite your completely healthy lifestyle, have to endure a long period of physical illness. That is the fitna. That is the specific heat of the crucible designed for your specific impurities.
So when the text says, "Isbir li hukmi rabbik," it's not saying, wait for God to fix this.
No.
It's saying, build your internal dam against the specific fire I have chosen for you. Accept the parameters of the test. Recognize that the unethical boss, the illness, or the delay are not glitches in the system. They are the system working exactly as intended to test your mettle.
Precisely. Fitna is the fire. Sabr is the conscious, deliberate response required to survive the fire. Without the test, without the heat of fitna, Sabr has no context. It cannot exist in a vacuum.
Right. You can't build a dam where there is no water.
You don't need a heat shield if you aren't re-entering the atmosphere. And conversely, without Sabr, the test of fitna will simply destroy you. If you panic, if you yield to jaza, you will melt away along with the impurities.
That completely reframes the entire human experience. I mean, if you genuinely internalize this source material, you have to stop asking the question, why is this happening to me? Will my life be hard?
Because the text establishes that fitna is a universal foundational law of existence.
Of course you are going to be tested. The fire is a given. The only relevant question left to ask is, how will I manage the test? How structurally sound is my dam?
This raises an incredibly important question about human agency. If you view your life through this dual lens of fitna and sabr, you can never again view yourself as a passive victim of your circumstances.
It strips it away.
Sabr strips away the victim mentality. It is the ultimate proactive strategy for navigating the existential reality of a difficult world. The text presents it not as a reluctant, sad coping mechanism, but as the highest, most dignified form of conscious engagement with reality.
Let's synthesize all of this. The authors of the source text literally call their methodology shattering the glass bottles.
I love that phrase.
They argue that over centuries of mistranslation and cultural dilution, we have trapped these massive dynamic concepts inside tiny, fragile glass bottles of narrow definitions. They want to smash the bottles so the true meaning can flow out and take its proper shape. Based on everything we've just explored, let's actively shatter the 3 biggest myths about patience that the source material takes aim at.
Let's begin the demolition.
Let's do it.
Myth number 1 is the pervasive idea that sabr is exclusively about suffering pain. It's the belief that if you are hurting, and you manage to be quiet about it so you don't bother anyone else, you're successfully practicing sabr.
Shatter that bottle. The reality, which we saw clearly in the 3 arenas, is that sabr is vastly wider and more robust than that.
It is.
Yes, it certainly encompasses enduring deep pain without surrendering to panic, but it also means maintaining obedience and moral integrity when you are bone tired. It means actively fighting off temptation and avoiding sin when the easy shortcut is right in front of you.
Right.
And it means waiting for a result without demanding the universe speed up its timeline. It is a full-spectrum life management system, not just a pain tolerance metric.
Myth number 2 is the assumption that sabr is passive. It's the doormat analogy we opened the show with. The idea that patience means turning off your engine and doing absolutely nothing.
Shatter it. The reality, pulled straight from the raw, physical, linguistic root of Al-Habs, is that sabr is an incredibly active, positive, and conscious act of willpower.
Very active.
It is the heavy lifting of building and maintaining a hydroelectric dam inside your own mind. It takes immense, constant, daily energy to remain tranquil in a chaotic, unpredictable world. It is the opposite of doing nothing.
And finally, myth number 3 is the deeply ingrained individualistic belief that sabr is a solo endeavor. It's the assumption that it's something you just have to figure out on your own, isolated in the fortress of your own mind, gritting your teeth in the dark.
Yes. I loved this part of the research. The text brings up Surah Al-Asr to dismantle this, right? The concept of advising each other to have sabr.
Yes. The specific phrase is Tawasi bil sabr, which translates to mutually commanding, advising, or encouraging one another to have sabr. The text makes it clear that the believers are mandated to actively support each other in maintaining their internal dams. It is a communal safety net.
A safety net.
If my dam is cracking under the intense pressure of my specific fitna, say, I am dealing with a terrifying health crisis. It is your job, as my community, my friend, my family, to help me reinforce my dam. You remind me of the timeline. You help me find that inner tranquility when my own strength fails. Sabre is a team sport just as much as it is an individual psychological discipline.
We co-regulate each other's saber. When you are weak, I lend you my concrete. When I am breaking down, you remind me to hold back the panic.
Exactly.
So what is the ultimate payoff for all of this? Building the dam, managing the fire of the crucible, and during the decades like the prophets of firm resolve, supporting our community. What does the source text say is the reward for mastering this ultimate exhausting virtue?
The text highlights something truly staggering, a concept that sets Sabre apart from everything else.
What's that?
Out of all the virtues, all the good deeds, all the acts of charity or prayer a person can perform, Sabre is the only one tied to an accountless or infinite reward.
Infinite.
The text cites Surah Zumar, verse 10. Indeed, the patient will be given their reward without account. It is unquantifiable. It is beyond mathematical calculation.
Why is that?
Because it is the hardest thing for the human ego to do, it yields an infinite return. But perhaps even more importantly than the future, eschatological reward. Sabre unlocks a profound state in the present moment, a state called Maya.
Maya. Let's explore that. What exactly is Maya?
Maya translates to the divine companionship.
Divine companionship.
The text quotes the verses that repeat the promise, God is with the patient.
Yeah.
When you practice true Sabre, when you forcefully hold back your panic and consciously align your will with the conditions of the test, you unlock the cosmic companionship of the divine.
Wow.
You are no longer enduring the fitna alone. The fire of the crucible is still hot, but the creator of the fire is standing with you in it.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now, dealing with the friction of your own life?
Yeah, let's bring it home.
If we connect this ancient wisdom to the bigger picture of our modern reality, Sabre isn't just a nice, polite character trait. It is, as the ancient dictionary Mobarak Al-Luga hinted at, the absolute peak of human behavior. It is the summit of the mountain.
It truly is.
We live in a modern world that is completely addicted to instant gratification, a world whose economy literally profits off our anxiety, our outrage, and our jaza. In that world, Sabre is the ultimate antidote.
It is the primary mechanism by which you reclaim your autonomy. When you stop reacting with knee-jerk panic to every external stimulus and start consciously restricting your negative impulses to find internal tranquility, you master yourself.
And the person who has mastered themselves through Sabre cannot be broken by the fitna of the world.
Nope.
The world can take their wealth, their health, or their status, but it cannot touch their tranquility.
Because the dam holds.
We started this deep dive with a word we thought meant waiting quietly in misery while sitting in a rain-soaked traffic jam. But the sources have shown us that it actually means building an active, unbreakable internal dam that channels the chaotic waters of life's endless tests into tranquil, focused energy. We've shattered the glass bottle of patience.
It fundamentally and permanently changes how you view the architecture of your own struggles.
It really does. Which brings us to our final thought for today. I want you to think about the biggest frustration in your life right now. Bring it to mind.
The big one.
The thing that is causing you the most anxiety, the delay that is driving you crazy, the friction that makes you want to quit everything and walk away. Is it possible that the friction you're feeling isn't a sign that things are going terribly wrong, but simply the fitna, the cosmic test, doing exactly what it's designed to do?
And if that's true,
What would happen if you stopped acting like a doormat, stopped waiting for the fire to just magically go out on its own, and instead started actively building your internal dam of Sabre?
that is the ultimate challenge of being human.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the things you think you know and stay curious.